I had always occupied the role of the older sister, bearing the weight of responsibility, often unnoticed, and silently enduring my sacrifices. When Mira wed a younger man brimming with charm and mischief, I applauded with the greatest enthusiasm. He embodied all that I had never allowed myself to yearn for. Yet, during their weekend visit, an undeniable change occurred. He gazed at me, not merely with his eyes, but with a depth of understanding, as though I were untouched by time, as if the passage of years had not dulled my essence. I ought to have walked away. I ought to have reminded him of my connection as her sister. Yet I found myself observing him in return. In that hushed moment, the threads of reality started to come undone. Nearly a year had passed since I last laid eyes on Mira. Life had intervened, with work, distance, and unvoiced matters standing in the path. In her early 40s, she exuded a vibrant charm, her soft-spoken nature complemented by a gracefulness that contrasted sharply with the tension I often felt within myself. When she expressed her desire to spend the weekend at my cottage with her husband, I found myself agreeing, driven by a mix of guilt and a profound sense of loneliness. The notion of a company ignited a spark within me that I seldom recognized. They reached their destination just as the sun began to dip below the horizon on Friday evening. Mira radiated her usual brilliance, while Ray trailed behind her, effortlessly shouldering their bags as if he had performed this ritual countless times before. He possessed undeniable handsomeness, complemented by kind eyes and a casual grace that could effortlessly disarm even the most skeptical among us. Our encounters had been fleeting, mere glimpses exchanged during hurried family gatherings on 2 separate occasions. At this moment, he was entering my tranquil, isolated realm. Years were devoted to crafting a life that belonged solely to me. In that serene lakeside cottage, I found myself living in solitude. My role as a therapist occupied my time fully. I connected with clients from afar, brewed my tea to perfection, and lost myself in the pages of books long into the night. I had mastered the art of quieting specific cravings, those that murmured in the stillness, those that yearned for connection and recognition. Those items were remnants of a different existence, a life I had nearly erased from my memory, one I once yearned for. On that initial evening, we found ourselves on the porch, each holding a glass of wine. Mira shared her thoughts on her role at the art gallery, detailing the exhibit she was curating and her exciting upcoming trip to Spain. I smiled and nodded, a true sense of joy swelling within me for her, though a tiny fragment of my mind pondered how 2 sisters could lead such contrasting lives. Ray primarily absorbed the conversation, interjecting now and then with a quip or a lighthearted comment. Yet what struck me was the frequency with which his eyes sought me out, not in a manner that felt unwelcome. No, it was more subdued than that, understated yet palpable, as if he were in the midst of unraveling a mystery. I convinced myself it was all in my head, that his actions were merely an expression of courtesy. Yet, as the night deepened and I traversed the house extinguishing the lights, I glimpsed him observing me from the shadows of the hallway. He held my gaze, unwavering, when our eyes intertwined. He offered a gentle smile, filled with understanding, and slipped away into the guest room behind Mira. I retired for the night with a sense of unease lingering in my mind. At dawn's first light, Mira set out with purpose, eager to reconnect with an old friend in the heart of the town. She had informed me the previous evening that she could be absent for the majority of the day. I mentioned that it was perfectly all right, that I would stay with Ray if he decided not to go out as well. He had merely shrugged at that moment, suggesting he might indulge in a book or perhaps stroll outside. That morning, as I descended the stairs in my robe, I discovered him already seated in the kitchen, savoring his coffee. The silence hung heavily in the air. "You appear quite well rested," he remarked. I offered a courteous smile. The tranquility of this place allows me to find a deeper, more restful sleep. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. I understand that clearly. This place possesses an undeniable allure. It seems as though you have found your place among us. His words lingered in the air, compelling me to stop and reflect. He was not referring to the house. He spoke of me, of the way I moved, of my very presence within that space. It was both disconcerting and complimentary simultaneously. I occupied my hands with the ritual of brewing tea, feigning ignorance to the way his gaze lingered on me. We lingered through the morning, immersed in conversations about literature, the intricacies of existence, the passage of time, and the weight of regrets. He revealed a surprising level of openness. He inquired about my previous relationships, and I responded with honesty, albeit somewhat ambiguously. I confided in him that I had embraced solitude, not out of disdain for love, but rather because I had never found the security to wholly surrender myself. He gazed at me, truly gazed, and remarked, "That makes sense, yet I believe you are the type of woman who still has so much to offer." The words lingered in my mind long after he had spoken them. It stirred a deep and tender ache within me, a sensation long buried and forgotten. As we lingered in the garden, a hush fell over our conversation. We observed the trees dance in the gentle wind, and I sensed the tension between us, a thread gradually drawing tighter. I realized I ought to excuse myself, reach out to Mira, or take some action to shatter the stillness of the moment. Yet I refrained. I remained seated, motionless and quiet, as his eyes glided over my skin as if they were meant to be there. In that quiet moment, the truth revealed itself to me. He longed for me, not in a hasty or thoughtless manner, but profoundly, as if he perceived something within me that Mira never had to strive for, a type of woman Mira never felt compelled to embody. In my vulnerability, I sensed a recognition of my struggle. Thus commenced the tempest. The atmosphere within the room hung thickly, more oppressive than one might expect. As I stood by the window, observing the playful dance of the wind with the curtains, my mind was consumed by the memory of Daniel's gaze from earlier. That fleeting look had dismantled 10 years of restraint. It lacked any hint of desire. Indeed, it was far more dire. It brimmed with an emotion perilously akin to yearning. The sound of the door clicking open echoed softly behind me. I turned slowly, and there he was, Daniel, standing with an uncertain expression, embodying the stillness of a man acutely aware that he had transgressed a boundary. I remained silent. I found it unnecessary. Our gazes locked, and in that moment, I glimpsed the tempest he was desperately striving to hold at bay. "I came to return this," he said softly, extending the scarf I had forgotten in the garden earlier that week. It was utterly absurd. A scarf hardly warranted the journey back. Not at this late hour. Not while my sister was away. He set it softly on the back of the couch, yet instead of retreating, he surveyed the room. The faded photographs, the lamp with its faulty switch, the book he had once caught me engrossed in. I observed him absorb these fragments of my existence as if they were hints waiting to be deciphered. He found himself drawn to a mystery he never imagined he would desire to unravel. "You used to laugh more," he murmured, almost as if the words were meant for his own ears alone. I took a deep breath. In the past, it went unnoticed. His gaze met mine, and in that fleeting moment, a wave of regret washed over me for what I had just said. Yet he remained steadfast. He advanced cautiously, as if gauging the stability of the ground below him. "You have always been the resilient one," he continued. "Forever the steadfast sister, the one who bound everyone in unity." I suppose I never ventured beyond that point. I whispered, "You should not," even as my body betrayed my voice, leaning ever so slightly forward. He advanced another step. "Yet I have." Breath eluded me. The stillness enveloped me, allowing the rhythmic ticking of the ancient clock in the hallway to resonate in the silence. I averted my gaze, yet he continued, his voice soft, exposed, and unrefined. He remarked, "She never speaks of you in the same way you speak of her. She captivates your admiration. She is forgiven by you. Your affection for her endures, even in light of the hurt she has caused you." "She is my sister," I replied, "and yet she regards you as if you are easily cast aside." I recoiled. "That is simply not the case." "Indeed, it is," he asserted with conviction. "You devoted years of your life to her, offered your savings in her times of need, and remained silent each time she hurt you. She never truly valued it. She was oblivious to your presence. And you do? I inquired, finally locking my gaze with his once more. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. Indeed, and I despise that I find myself feeling this way now. I regret not having recognized it earlier. I passed by him and settled onto the couch, attempting to calm my quaking hands. He remained upright, caught in a web of uncertainty, feeling the weight of his own truth pressing down on him. I told you she loves you. No matter her imperfections, her love for you remains unwavering. I know, he replied. Yet, there are moments when love falls short. At times, it manifests as comfort, a mere habit, or the weight of guilt. I gazed up at him, my voice trembling on the edge of breaking. So what brings you here? He spoke softly, expressing his desire to understand the sensation. To be with someone who truly understands me, who perceives the depths of my being. When I gaze upon you, I can't help but ponder how different my life might have been had our paths crossed earlier. With my eyes shut tight, I surrendered to the darkness. Those words struck like a dagger and detonated like a bomb, all at once. He drew nearer, and this time I remained still. He extended his hand, lightly grazing mine, and a shiver coursed through me. His touch was gentle, unassuming. It was filled with regret, uncertain, seeking consent from every fiber of my being. I cannot, I declared, yet my fingers entwined with his. Indeed, he responded. Yet, it was essential for me to express it. The silence lingered once more, yet it carried a new weight this time. With a palpable tension, he settled next to me, and for a fleeting moment, we lingered in silence, two souls grieving the reflections of ourselves that would forever remain out of reach. He leaned in closer, his lips nearly grazing my hair. Just say the word, and I'll go, he murmured. I had the desire to. I felt an overwhelming urge to shout at him, to create distance between us, to evoke the promises made and the steadfastness once shared, alongside the treachery that loomed like a noose between us. Yet, I yearned to forget, to experience something genuine, even if it was flawed. I chose to shift my gaze elsewhere. Our faces hovered mere inches from one another. The allure was insatiable. I am not her, I declared. I am aware. I shall never become. I would prefer that you not be. In response to a question that lingered unspoken between us, his lips brushed against mine. It was not a matter of desperation. It was devoid of hunger. It unfolded gradually, with a gentle touch, brimming with the emotions we had long concealed beneath the weight of obligation and quietude. For a fleeting moment, I surrendered to his presence, embracing the sensation of being truly seen, of being desired for my authentic self, rather than the facade I had once worn. Yet, the moment dissipated as swiftly as it had emerged. I drew back, tears beginning to well in my eyes. This is not something we can accomplish. I know, he repeated, his voice trembling. He rose, resolute, and made his way to the door. Yet, just before he departed, he paused, his gaze alight with brilliance. You are worthy of so much more than this, he remarked. Beyond mere concealment, beyond the act of laying down your life for those who fail to recognize your value. And then he vanished into thin air. I remained seated, the resonance of his words overpowering all else I had ever experienced. My sister would return in a few hours. Life would resume its familiar, exasperating cadence. Yet, the memory of that moment will forever linger in my mind, the sensation of being selected, if only for the briefest of instants. For it is often just a fleeting look, a heartfelt admission, or a solitary kiss that can dismantle all that you believe to be true about yourself, setting in motion the arduous and tender process of reconstruction. Sleep eluded me that night. I reclined in bed, my fingertips brushing against my lips, where his touch had once remained, attempting to wipe away the memory, yet finding myself unable to do so. The sound of my heart echoed in the stillness, pounding within my chest as if it were a foreboding signal. What had I wrought? What have we wrought? The sun ascended gradually, spilling its golden rays through my window, a silent taunt to the chaos within me. All appeared indistinguishable. Yet I found myself not in that position. A change had occurred. A door swung wide, irrevocably ajar, sealing its fate in the annals of time. Not entirely. As my sister burst through the door later that afternoon, she was a familiar tempest of energy, laughter spilling from her lips as she flung her coat onto the chair, recounting the exhausting details of her conference. She failed to inquire about my well-being. She never did. As I sat there, pouring her coffee, I wore a smile on my face, while a fire raged within me. She spoke of Daniel with a casual air, noting that he would be home shortly and likely yearning for her cooking. I inclined my head in acknowledgement. A smile graced my lips. I expressed my joy for her, yet each word felt like a strand coming undone, revealing a more profound turmoil within me. That evening, I strolled home, my arms securely encircling my own form. The streets lay in stillness, yet my mind buzzed with activity. I pondered Daniel's hands, the way his gaze had met mine, not as her sister, nor as the older, overlooked, secure figure, but as a woman who had finally been acknowledged, perhaps for the first time in years. Yet, with that gaze emerged a burden of guilt, thick and suffocating. He belonged to no one but himself, not for me to embrace, not for me to touch, not for me to dream of a future alongside. I endeavored to persuade myself that it held no significance, that it was merely a fleeting moment of frailty, a misstep in the judgment of two souls who had grown weary, too fractured to recall their roles. Yet the truth lingered around me, elusive and suffocating like a wisp of smoke. I had desired it, not merely the kiss. I longed for desire, for the warmth of a touch, for the sweet affirmation of my beauty. For countless years, I poured myself into the service of others, embodying the role of the reliable, yet often unnoticed, figure. And now, when someone at last ignited a spark within me, it came at the expense of my own sister. The irony was sharp and unsettling. As the days unfolded, Daniel maintained his distance. He steered clear of my presence at family gatherings. He scarcely glanced in my direction. He assumed the role of the ideal husband once more, while I slipped into the background as I always did, smiling, nodding, and remaining silent. Yet, the burden of it all started to reveal itself. I noticed it in the way he gripped his coffee cup a bit too firmly, in the way his gaze held on me when no one else was paying attention, and most troubling of all, in the way my sister had begun to sense that something was amiss. One evening, as we sipped wine, she casually inquired whether I believed Daniel was distancing himself. I found myself gasping as the liquid caught in my throat. "What leads you to that conclusion?" She gave a slight shrug. "He has been unusually quiet, maintaining a certain distance. He would return home and share every detail with me. It feels as though he exists in a realm apart, even when he stands beside me." I gazed at her, and for the first time in years, I perceived her vulnerability, the fissures beneath her facade of confidence, and it struck me to the core. Her heart was entwined with his, perhaps not in an ideal manner, nor in a way that fully encompassed his essence, yet her love for him was undeniable. And I had forsaken that love. "I'm certain he's merely overwhelmed," I murmured gently. Her smile graced her lips, yet it failed to illuminate her eyes. "Perhaps, yet there are moments when I sense I am drifting away from him." I felt compelled to reveal the truth to her. I felt the weight of my confession pressing on my chest, a desperate plea for forgiveness lingering on my lips, yet I was acutely aware of the chaos that truth would unleash. It would shatter her. It would bring about our ruin. I chose to remain quiet. The burden of guilt rested solely on my shoulders. The most painful realization was the knowledge that Daniel bore the same burden. A week later, a note appeared, quietly slipped beneath my door. "I shall not speak of that night again. Your journey is yours, and mine is my own. Understand this, you have transformed me. Your presence rekindled the essence of genuine connection within me. I shall carry that memory with me, intertwined with the bittersweet weight of its unattainability, without fail, without a name, without a signature." Yet I was certain it was him. I perused that note repeatedly a dozen times over. I pressed it close to my heart, then set it aflame, for some truths are far too perilous to retain, even in written form. That night, I found myself before the mirror, gazing intently at my reflection, truly observing. The creases etched upon my skin, the melancholy that resides in my gaze, the yearning that remains palpable in my demeanor. Thus I arrived at a decision. While the past remained unalterable, the future was mine to shape. This shall not be my defining moment. I refuse to allow a fleeting moment of vulnerability to overshadow the woman I have dedicated 5 decades to becoming. Time slipped away, month by month. As the seasons shifted, so too did I, subtly and gradually, without any grand announcements. Yet profoundly, I found myself dedicating more moments to solitude. I ventured to destinations I had long deferred, delved into volumes I had previously set aside, and enrolled in a pottery class that left my hands delightfully dirty and my spirit uplifted. In the embrace of clay, within the stillness, and during those gentle mornings, I discovered fragments of my essence, no longer yearning for a call or a glance. At family gatherings, Daniel and I maintained a veneer of politeness, trading only safe words and cautious smiles. The blaze that ignites in the space between. A moment that was not meant for the light lay buried, not forgotten but recognized. My sister remained blissfully unaware. Perhaps a fragment of her intuition recognized that a change had occurred, yet she never inquired further, and I never provided her with a motive to do so. I began to love her more deeply, with a newfound attentiveness, infused with a sense of remorse that eluded verbal articulation. That year, she extended an invitation for her birthday trip, and I accepted. We shared laughter once more, reminiscent of carefree days. As we navigated the uneven cobblestones, she grasped my arm with a gentle yet reassuring hold. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I experienced the warmth of being her sister once more, rather than merely lingering in her shadow. I did not discover love in the manner I anticipated, yet I unearthed tranquility. At times, it is peace that embodies the truest form of love, a presence that endures, one that demands nothing yet mends all wounds. At last, I had returned to the essence of who I truly am.